Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Center for Applied AI, UMBC Training Center's Lunch and Learn session. I am going to do a quick walkthrough of the Center for Applied AI and hand it over to our awesome speaker, Arvind. So, as you already know, our aim at the Center for Applied AI is to be the world's premier location for transforming society by enabling simple and safe application of exponential technologies, starting with AI. We are on a large mission, and we are quite serious about it. The background, C4AI is a part of the UMBC's training centers, where we provide professional and technical training for individuals, businesses, nonprofits, governments. In turn, the UMBC Training Centers is a part of UMBC, top-ranked national research university. And over the last 24 years, our clients have included top government agencies, private sector, nonprofits, a very impressive set of clientele. So C4AI primarily provides these four services. We provide expert advisory, leaders from federal government, major corporations, nonprofits, academia. We provide a comprehensive training roster on all things AI and beyond. We also support AI strategy and adoption. So we provide help on implementing AI frameworks, end-to-end lifecycle management. Where should you infuse AI into your products? How should you go about it? Which model should you select? We even do research on hardware side and stuff. And we have a fully functional lab where we support AI ML research, use case identification, provide managed services for our clients and partners, specialized customized trainings, even incubator. So talking about trainings, these are some of our key or top training courses. We're seeing a lot of interest in the fundamentals pieces. The AI for leaders is really resonating with a lot of private and government. We did stuff for armies, stuff for Navy. We're talking to our county government, Constellation Energy. So a lot of interest there. We also have AI training on risk frameworks, responsible AI, technical trainings on the data side, on software development side. And we also have training for non-technical people. So if you're not technical and you feel like you're not sure where you want to start, we have a set of modules to get you ramped up and get started with that. And if you want to bring a use case to us, or if you just want to attend a boot camp, then we can do an immersive 3 to 5 day boot camp where you come to the boot camp with very little and you walk away with a lot. You can do that. So think of our Applied AI Lab as your engine for AI innovation. So you want to kickstart AI innovation and accelerate that in your enterprise. We can help you with projects. We can help you with managed service and help you build capabilities. We are staffed using senior AI engineers, graduate students, and experienced product professionals. And we can help you quickly and easily do use case identification for yourself or for your clients. We can do some proactive research. We can look at different models, technologies, test those for you. We are already doing a lot of research on the risk management, lifecycle frameworks, all kinds of things, NIST and several global EU frameworks and all of that. So we can, if you want to implement AI safety frameworks, for example, at your organization, we can certainly help you with that. There are some contacts. You can reach out to us. Any of these emails would be good enough. You can just reach out. We have a website, c4ai.ai. I'm sure you're familiar with that. I'll post some links here right after. And do follow us on LinkedIn. We post things out over there from time to time, and would love to have you engage with us as a lively community. With that, I'll go ahead and introduce the speaker of the week, Mr. Irwin. So Irwin is a strategic thinker. He makes me think all the time. Every time I talk to him, I walked away a little smarter. He has worked, he has served, thank you for his service. He has worked for top companies, Big Four, recently Freddie, and now he is a freelance consultant of his own. The Exponential Scout, if I may, right? Is that your word? Is that the company name? Oh, awesome. I love it. So with that, I'll let him introduce himself properly, introduce the topic, and take it away from here, Irvin.
Perfect. Thank you, Tushar. Let me just here share my screen. Okay. Can you all see my screen all right?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So, well, no, thank you for that, Tushar. I do appreciate it. Really excited to have this discussion with you all. We have, quite a bit to cover to share in terms of how do we manage uncertainty in the exponential age, as per the mission of C4 AI, right? It is how to be able to safely manage and execute these exponential technologies, starting with AI. But I want to take these next 50 minutes to discuss how to manage the uncertainty that the exponential age brings about and brings into our workplace, into our lives, etc. So just a little bit of background. Um, as Tushar mentioned, I've worked for Fortune 500 companies. I served in the military for 22 years. But my first job out of college um, was focusing on the future warfare, which really got me down this path back in the late 1990s, to exploring how it is that warfare was going to change, and how does the Department of Defense needed to think differently about that change, given the technological advancements of the 1990s. Um, so we've come a long way in the past 24, 25 years since then. And so let's get right into it here and look at what is it that we're going to look at today. So I want to look at this in three phases. Look at the challenge, the amount of change created by the exponential age, the complications, humans' ability to address exponential change, and the resolution. How do we manage the uncertainty? So let's look at the challenge. So what do we mean by exponential? And when I'm talking about exponential, I mean an extremely rapid rate of increase that at some point becomes hard for our minds to really fathom and think about. Right? We can use the word exponential to really think exponential growth. What does that really mean? What does that look like? And I will posit that we're living in historical times. This decade, the previous decade was the previous century wasn't a historical century when you look at the span of history, and this one even more so, because we are truly entering a rate of change that we've never seen before um, in our lifetimes, and it's just going to continue to get faster. Uh, so the best way to help think through exponential, let me go through a parable that's out there, the wheat and chessboard problem. So it is said that the inventor of chess was going to be rewarded by the king, whether it was in Persia or in India, I'm not sure. But the point is that he was going to be rewarded by the king, and the king asked him, "What would you like?" And what he told them was, "I would like for you to give me, take the chessboard and give me 1 grain of sand on the first square. And that for every other square in the whole chess, go ahead and double it." So by the time you got to the middle of the chessboard, you're looking at over 4 billion grains of sand. And then by the time you get to the end of the chessboard, square 64, you're looking at 18 quintillion, over 18 quintillion, or 10 to the 18th grains of wheat that the king would have to owe the inventor of the board of chess. That is a huge number, huge for our minds to fathom. But that's what we're talking about, exponential. It is a highly increasing rate and acceleration to the rate of change that we are experiencing. Ray Kurzweil, futurist for Google, has been a futurist for a long time, in 2001 wrote this. The paradigm shift rate, i.e., the overall rate of technical progress, is currently doubling approximately every decade. That is, paradigm shift times are happening every decade, and the rate of acceleration is itself growing exponentially. Let me tell you that. The rate of acceleration is itself growing exponentially. So, technological progress in the 21st century will be equivalent to what would require on the order of 200 centuries. In contrast, the 20th century saw only 25 years of progress. Again, at today's rate of progress, and this is 2001. Since we have been speeding up to current rates, the 21st century will see almost 1,000 times greater technological change than its predecessor. In other words, he's saying that in this 21st century, given again the whole span of time, we are seeing what amounts to 2 centuries worth of change every year occurring. That it would take the 2 centuries worth of the amount of change that when we're looking at change occurring from the beginning of time of humanity coming to now, right? It is an extremely large amount of change. Now, maybe this might be an exaggeration, but it drives a point to the amount of change that is occurring and we are experiencing. And a lot of it is most of it is being driven by technology and the adoption of technology into human endeavors. So this chart from Kathy Wood's ARK investment management firm, I think is very telling. It's looking at global world production in 2021 billions. So if you look at zero, this is the year zero between BC and AD. And as you can see, production is pretty much flat for centuries, all the way until you start seeing a change here in the 1640s, 1845s. And then we start entering the Industrial Revolution. And digital revolutions, you see just a sharp increase in the increase in production. And you can equate that to the rate of technological progress and the rate of change that has been occurring throughout history since then. So to put it in context for you of how different this is, if you think about, let's think about a general during the Punic Wars. Those were the wars between the Roman Republic and Carthage in North Africa, about 200 BC. If I take a general from that time and I put him in charge of a European army in 1500, there might be some differences, a few, right? There's cannon, rifles are trying to come into play, but they haven't really proliferated in the 1400s yet, fully into the armies. It's still close contact type of war. There is artillery, but they kind of had some similar to that artillery, although it wasn't gunpowder based in the Punic Wars, etc. So it wouldn't be too different. But if I take that same a general from the 15th century and put him now in the 21st century to lead a modern army, it would completely wow their brains. Even if I did that with a general in the 1800s and had him lead an army of today, would be something that they could not comprehend or fully understand. Yet the time span, the time horizon between when that general in the Punic War existed and in the 1500, right, could be 1700 years versus the 500 years of difference between the general in the 1500 and 21st century. We can say the same thing about money exchangers or merchants during the same period. Money would have been very similar to somebody in the Roman Republic as in somebody in Venice in 1500, or even somebody in France in the 1800, mostly with coins. You had the Roman Empire had coins, had gold coins, silver coins, etc. The same type of bullion was used in the 1800s. You use it now, and you're to have a merchant from the 18th century come in the 21st century, it would be completely different. Everything is digital, right? We're using our phones to pay, to transact, etc. So there's a huge disparity. The amount of change that's been occurring historically has been very slow for millennia until the past 200 years. And in this 21st century, it is just shooting up exponentially. We're seeing a lot more. We're going to continue to see a lot more than we've ever seen. And I will say, continues drives this. And we keep getting our predictions wrong about this exponential change that's occurring and how fast it's occurring, and we'll see why. This other slide from ARK Invest is also very telling. It looks at the expected years until general artificial intelligence systems becomes available and the forecast error rates that occur. So in 2019, pre-GPT-3, right, it was expected that we get to general AI in 80 years. You look at with the advent of OpenAI announcing GPT-3, the forecast became 50 years in the middle of 2019. When Google demonstrates its advanced conversational agents with Lambda 2, the error rate now had gone from 34 moving to 18 years. It was not the error rate, but the expected time to general artificial intelligence. When GPT-4 launches, the forecast is getting shorter. GPT-4 launches, we're almost under 10 years. And now we're under 8 years. If the forecasts is well tuned and continues at 8 years, we should see general artificial intelligence in 2030. If the error rate persists, the forecast error rate continues, we should see it in 2 years. Now, this is going to create a lot of change, and we'll see why. Because it's a technological advancement that we haven't seen before in history, having general artificial intelligence systems available to everybody out there that come close to that, do human reasoning. So this would be an unexpected amount of change that we are going to see. But AI is not just a foundational technology, but also catalyzing one. That's even going to supercharge additional discoveries and breakthroughs in other technologies, in quantum, materials, robotics, energy, biotech, and blockchain. And it's already doing it. Smart contract and security optimization is being done with AI tools. AI tools are being employed to make these smart contracts and decentralized applications more secure, more safe. AI is being used in protein folding and drug discovery. DeepMind's AlphaFold is dramatically accelerated the field of structural biology by predicting different protein structures. If you look at AI is being used to develop different polymers and polymer designs for material innovation. IBM AI's for materials discovery platform has been accelerating the search of innovative platforms used in both electronics for making chips as well as in healthcare. We have enhanced perception and autonomy with robotics. Just these robotics, these robots are getting smarter and more capable every single time. A lot of this is being powered by AI, by machine learning, by neural networks, etc. And lastly, energy. It's accelerating fusion reactor design and discoveries in that space. So AI is going to have a compounding effect on the change, driving more its exponential nature of it that we are experiencing. Just imagine when all these we start having more breakthroughs in biotech with AI, with materials, we can have the concept of self healing materials because we've grown to understand how it is that a tree in nature grows a limb, how it is that a reptile is able to grow a new limb and be able to apply those to the things that we build, etc. A bridge built itself, which is already occurring in certain parts of the world in certain experience. So AI is catalyzing and compounding this exponential change. I want to talk a little bit about AI and quantum and how they're mutually reinforcing. And AI is driving great advancements in optimizing qubit performance and allowing algorithm discovery. Both Google Quantum AIs and Shandu, which is a Canadian company, which is using photonics for quantum computing, are both leveraging machine learning to make significant advancements. But think about it. Once AI is able to is AI is going to be is not going, but it is on a critical path to making quantum commerciable. Once it does, and quantum computers are available to everybody, and you start applying quantum machine learning, right? The AI is going to get smarter and super faster, which is going to allow for even more discoveries, more ability to reason, more ability to understand, and create more breakthroughs. So that is something that these two companies, both Google Quantum AI and Shandu, are giving themselves the next decade to be able to commercialize quantum. Will they get there? We don't know. But if our inability to forecast progress and exponential change is as bad as it has been with general artificial intelligence, we might get there sooner than we think. Now, it's not just about the technologies that's driving this exponential change, but emerging and unexpected behaviors are compounding, accelerating change as well. Some of these are familiar to you all, right? As you get human beings and society starts to interact with these technologies because they become available to them, humans are very creative on how they begin to use them to find different solutions to problems that they had before that they could not solve. So some examples of these emergent behaviors that were unexpected in the past 20 years is the rise of citizen journalism and accountability. Like the fact that everybody has a mobile phone now and can take a video, post it on the web, creates a lot more transparency in terms of how politicians interact. We've seen it in terms of videos taken about police engagement with the citizenry, etc. Keeps them more accountable, which leads to having police having body cams on them to be able to record all their activity, etc. So we got this rise of citizen journalism and accountability that we could not have predicted in 2001 when Ray Kurzweil was writing about accelerating change, the gig economy, and platform-driven work. That was an unexpected behavior and change. Social media as a global public square. We have the rise of these influencers. Anybody can take this global public square and become a voice. And we have things that has been very good in many ways that allows more voices and breaks the monopoly of traditional media companies, but at the same time creates opportunities for misinformation, etc. Decentralized communication channels for illicit purposes is not all good. It was very interesting that WhatsApp, which many of us use, especially when we travel internationally, because it makes it easy and cheap to communicate, was being used by ISIS to avert detection by the NSA during the U.S. conflicts in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and in Syria. Gen AI and emerging modalities and content creation. We have decentralized finance and NFTs, the democratization of content production. Anybody can generate. It's easy for anybody to publish a book, to be able to create a movie, create a documentary. And here's one, binge TV show culture, which we can all relate that, right? This is an unexpected behavior. In the 80s and the 90s, we didn't do that. There wasn't the ability to just binge watch unless you were just putting videotapes or DVDs into the player. Now people can spend hours watching 150 shows of Lost if they wanted to nonstop. So we got the compounding of the technological breakthroughs being driven by AI, and we got these emergent behaviors. Let's look at the complication. What does this present to us? We as humans are not naturally equipped to intuitively handle exponential change. That's Daniel Kahneman. He's a late Nobel laureate who wrote Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. He was a psychologist and behavioral economist. Why it is? Because we humans have linear bias. We think in terms of slow, steady progress, not the repeated doublings that is characteristic of exponential change or growth. Difficulty in forecasting breakthroughs. It's unintuitive to see the orders of magnitude more advanced. That's why we get the forecasting error wrong when we're looking at artificial intelligence. Delayed recognition. As changes become tangible, societies adjust and normalize to new realities. We have to see it. We have to touch it. It has to proliferate some for us to actually be able to recognize it and start using it. And lastly, system one thinking. This is something that is proposed in Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow, that we prefer our fast automatic system of thought, which is system one. We react, we act based, and that reaction is based on our experience. Instead of taking the time to take the effort, think things through logically, and then act. That's system two. But we have a preference and we have a bias for system one thinking. So this complicates how it is that we interact with this exponential change and this exponential age, because we are not wired, at least we have not trained our minds to do so, because as you look at throughout history and throughout generations, change has been relatively slow. And we tend to expect as humans that the future is going to be very much like what we've experienced now or what we experienced in the past. It's hard for us to put ourselves in radically different futures. So it's difficult for us to think that our mental models are the skills, the abilities, the ways of thinking, the assumptions that drove us, that made us successful in the past. We think those are the ones that are going to make us successful in the future. And that's not always the case, because these exponential technologies are like tectonic movements, like tectonic plates, are changing the foundations of our mental models and our business models that we operate both as individuals and as organizational leaders. So what do we do when the rate of change surpasses our cognitive abilities? The resolution. It doesn't really surpass our cognitive abilities. I put that question is, I don't necessarily think so, right? You just have to, we have to adapt and create new habits, new ways of thinking. And that's what we'll get into into the resolution. It's time to learn from the timeless human endeavors where chaos, uncertainty, and complexity dominate. Humans throughout history have operated in environments of a lot of chaos and a lot of uncertainty, which is what the exponential change brings. Chaos and uncertainty and not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing what the outcome could be. We need to strengthen our system two thinking and make that more of the dominant way of thinking rather than system one. And two, how do we apply critical thinking tools and develop competencies to promote system two thinking? So, on war is a book that any military officer reads, especially as they move up into the field grade levels in their profession. But it was written by General Karl von Clausewitz, a German general, and it's one of the fundamental books to read on strategy, military strategy, and thinking about war. And in it, he talks, most of you have heard about the fog of war, the pervasive uncertainty that shrouds battlefield decisions. The battlefield and war is one of those timeless endeavors that humans have engaged in that have been always filled with chaos and uncertainty. It's very unpredictable. War is not predictable because you got multiple actions and reactions happening at one time, emotions flying, etc., and whatnot. So he looked at it and thought about it. Okay, how is it that officers, especially in that time, thinking somebody like Napoleon, because that's the era when he lived, are able to be so successful in these very chaotic environments? And he talked about three essential qualities for success in war. And I'll posit these are the same ones we can use in uncertain environments. One is courage. There's two kinds. There's physical courage, but there's also moral courage that he talks about. And this is courage in the presence of responsibility, of censure and moral danger. This is courage to go against what we would call the status quo, to be different. Um, there is insight. Um, this is the ability, this is more about the creative spirit and be able to have insight and the mental faculties to take action in a particular situation. And then judgment, we'll get into it. There's the ability of when we're taking that action to be able to make sure to be very judicial on that action and properly apply that insight in action. So in the military, I was an infantry officer, and when this comes from special operations, but when we were doing specific trainings and how to do close quarter combat, there's always a saying, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And I brought that into my family. I always tell my kids, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And my wife in turn always tells me when I'm hurried, hey, Erwin, remember, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. I think it's very appropriate in how it is that we deal and manage exponential change. It is very important to develop insight and judgment, which are highly dependent in system two thinking. This developing insight and judgment might appear slow, but it's what's going to enable us to go fast in the midst of uncertainty. So look a little bit more, let's look into insight and look at what are some of the things we can use to develop that insight. And the insight I'll define as a deep intuitive understanding of the underlying dynamics and interconnections. Do we have an understanding of the underlying dynamics and interconnections of the industry that we operate, of the organization we're operating with, of the market we're operating in, of the operating environment and the geopolitical environment we're operating in? That's developing insight, getting that deep intuitive understanding. So what can we do to develop insight? Again, it might appear slow, some of the first things that we're doing, but it's building these practices that enable us to go fast as the exponential change continues to accelerate. First principles thinking. Um, I'm a firm believer in first principle thinking, which is really breaking down a problem to its most basic and fundamental truth. You can't go any further than that basic fundamental truth or assumption. So we want to be able to identify the fundamental truth or assumptions of our mental maps of how we think, right? Of what made us successful from yesterday to today. But also we're looking at our organization of the business models that have created that organization. Do we understand what are the fundamental assumptions and fundamental truth of those business models that we operate on? Often we don't have to think about it because when change is very slow, those assumptions are truth. Nothing really challenges those assumptions. But when the foundations begin to shift, you start developing crack in those assumptions. And if we don't have those in mind consistently, that is when we put ourselves in a very precarious situation to be able to succeed in the future. So we want to be able to consistently question what must be true for these assumptions to hold under the emerging change. And it's something that now we don't have to do it alone, right? It's not just me trying to think, what are those assumptions? For the next, as we look at these next practices, I use Gen AI, ChatGPT, to be able to develop these. I developed, my own prompts to ask it, okay, this is my fundamental belief about this industry. Create, create questions for me to further to further be able to understand what are my fundamental assumptions and ask why of those questions. And I enter in a dialogue with GPT to be able to tease out those assumptions. That's something I can just spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes with it, but it helps me to think. It doesn't have to be 100% correct, but it's helping me to think and understand what are those fundamental assumptions of my own mental maps and business models that I operate under. General Mattis, he was a Marine Corps general. He was also Secretary of Defense. Wrote, the problem with being too busy to read is that you learn by experience or by immense experiences the hard way. By reading, you learn through others' experiences. Generally, a better way to do business. Thanks to my reading, I have never been caught flat-footed by any situation, never at a loss for how any problem has been addressed, successfully or unsuccessfully before. It doesn't give me all the answer, but it lights what is often a dark path ahead. Now you're saying, what are you going to tell me to read? Erwin, I'm not a reader, and I get it. Many people are not readers, but there's to develop that insight, we have to be able to acquire knowledge and acquire that ability to think and understand what's going on in the world around me so that I can question my own fundamental assumptions. So I want to introduce you to the concept of augmented reading because like Sir Francis Bacon wrote, some books are to be tasted, others are to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. So it's not about reading books cover to cover, but understand what are the major insights that you can draw out from these major books that are being put out there, especially right now that we're looking at AI, Web3, how society is changing, etc. Knowledge and insight are ubiquitous in the web, and we can go get it. And again, you can ask your favorite GPT to help you compile a list of emerging technologies how to change books. You can ask it to give you, hey, give me some TED Talks by these authors, or give me some articles that these authors have written so I can pull out the insights of the books that they have written. Give me some influencers that are talking about these same themes and some counterpoints of these individuals for the authors. You could ask it to create a learning path for you. I asked it to create a learning path on blockchain and Web3 for me, a 10-week where I could only spend 20 to 25 minutes learning blockchain technology and what it means to business, etc. And it gave me a whole structure on how to go through it, where to go on the web to look for it, based on a reading to help me determine what's the impact on my fundamental assumptions. I give it my fundamental assumptions. I give it the books it recommends, and I say, okay, how does these challenge my assumptions? What do I need to be thinking about? I highly recommend a gentleman by the name of Michael Simmons. He writes a lot on augmented reading. The website is there, and I know we'll share these slides so you get that for you to look at. The next piece is how do we rehearse the future? And I have to speed up here because we're running short on time. I see. Rehearse the future. The future is not as unpredictable as we think it is. And I'm a big proponent of scenario planning, which is a disciplined method for managing a range of plausible future in which today's decisions might play out. It is the ability to do strategic.
Hey,
Hello? I think somebody's there to have a question or you want to go on mute. There we go. Um, it really helps us to do strategic thinking. And be able to give us a place to practice what the future could be and test our assumptions in those different futures. So, as I mentioned, the future is not as unpredictable as we think. There are always signals in the noise that point to emerging trends. The question is, are we looking at them? That is the point of developing this insight, the ability to read and be able to scan, and we can leverage GPT to help us understand what are those signals of change that are occurring out there, because they are there. There's always signals. There were signals to the pandemic that occurred. A lot of people have been talking about that had been breakouts before, just nobody took it seriously. When you look at black swan events like the pandemic, there were signals to 9/11 because there are similar terrorist attacks that could have happened for people to be in high alert for things to occur. Those are what we would call black swan events. But even to these these more salient technological changes that are occurring, there are signals of how it's going to impact our industry. We just have to look for them. Key is mapping out these signals and then putting them in plausible futures or plausible stories of what that could be. And you think, well, Erwin, how do I do that? Right? That requires me to do a lot of that reading. Okay, let's leverage augmented reading. Let's be able to understand what are the blogs, what are the news feeds that I need to be taking information in to be able to understand and determine what's happening. And again, I'll ask your favorite Gen AI, your favorite GPT to help you develop that. We have this amazing tool now saying, what are the key signals of the technological trends that could impact my industry, that can impact where I work? You can ask it to give you those signals, give you a map, and then give you different plausible scenarios. And then you can ask it to test your fundamental assumptions in those different scenarios. The point here is to think and develop insight. It doesn't have to be accurate, but the point is to warm up that brain to develop that insight, right? Is that part of that working slow, going slow, that logical thinking. So you're developing insight because most likely the future is going to be some version of all those scenarios. When scenario planning is done, and it's done in the Department of Defense, that is usually what has occurred. So it's not as unpredictable as we think. The other piece is also developing the competency of thinking in systems. And looking at systems thinking, and which is a holistic approach to be able to visualize the ecosystem of an industry, for example, and be able to understand what are the interactions between the different nodes in that specific system. And it gives you a conceptual representation. Now, I haven't been able to find a GPT that actually can draw a system map for me, but I have leveraged GPT to be able to give me what are all the different nodes, the links, the feedback loops, the stocks, the flows, any leverage points and external influencers and mental models in a system map so that I could place them in there. But just going through that exercise with it helps me understand what is the breadth and what are the actions, interactions. If I do this in this node, what's going to happen in this node? Again, these are all things that you can do, and you can do them relatively fast, taking 10 minutes a day to discuss scenarios with GPT, to discuss the systems of your industry with GPT, to discuss your assumptions. All this is helping you develop insight. And this, right, you'll be able to combine with judgment, which is the capacity to make sound, rational decisions based on the available information and strategic objectives. Because you've developed all this insight very quickly now with the leverage of Gen AI. When you start hitting the future and you start hitting this change, you'll be able to have better judgment because you're not going to be working from cold. And I don't know what's going on. You have warmed up your brain to do some thinking, so you'll be able to execute a little faster. And here are some practices that I am a firm believer when we're executing based on that insight. And I'm a big fan and a practitioner of human-centered design. Design people usually think is pixels on an app and how do you make it usable, etc. But I follow under a very famous designer, John Coco, his concept that design really is a philosophy to problem solving. How do we go and often look for the unseen, especially when we look at the human interaction with this technology? Because design helps take the complexity of the technological change and humanize it. So it helps us to formulate assumptions of emerging human needs and actively explore with users the truths about those assumptions, deriving insights from the exploration and translating them into desirable solutions. It requires action to go and talk to people and understand how that's being done. Now, this human-centered design, I do think for individuals, it's good to have an understanding as a philosophy, but in an enterprise, I firmly believe has to be a key competency to be able to win within in the exponential age. It helps you also to identify these latent needs, functional, emotional, or social needs. Those latent needs are needs that or problems that were not seen and only understood once you see a solution. Design helps you to be able to tease out these latent needs of what's capable now with the technology. And continuous learning on the changing landscape of emerging needs helps you build a habit of trying to discover the emerging needs of people as they interact with technology. The last piece that I will cover here is the concept of lean, the lean startup. I like to call it lean experimentation because lean startup has gotten too trendy. But at its core, it's the scientific method. So when you're thinking about systems to thinking and being able to use your logical reasoning, there's nothing more more logical and reasoning than the scientific method, which is how do I take what Eric Ries, the author of Lean Startup, talks about? How do I empirically demonstrate what are some of the truth about my proposed business prospects or my proposed solutions? So I start with here's once I understand a problem using design that arises out of all this complexity, out of all this exponential change, and I come up with a solution. Here's what I think how I will solve the problem, right? It's my proposed solution. Then I quickly tease out the assumptions of that solution, logically think about, what if I get wrong? This assumption would cause my whole endeavor to fail, the solution to be wrong. And experiment and be able to test those assumptions, create an experiment with defined outcomes and criteria to measure if it succeeds or fail, and measure it. Put it out there, learn, and then decide. The ability to do this scientific method, this loop very quickly is going to be very critical in this exponential age. So once we've developed the insight, we have the ability to identify the problems, and rapidly experiment at low costs will enable us to move fast to understand how the world is evolving through this exponential change. So in closing here, so we have some time for questions, I'll leave you with a couple things. The rate of change you're experiencing today is the slowest you'll experience in your lifetime. This is a quote that I heard at Lean Startup Conference about 10 years ago. And it continues to be more true and more real as every day passes by. So to win in the exponential age, we must have the courage to go slow and then fast. And I'll leave you with slow is smooth, smooth is fast. We have the propensity to act quick. We want to go do, but thinking has never been more important than in the exponential age. And with that, let me open it up to questions.
Arvind, that was smooth, man. That was cool.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Very impactful. Snaps. All right, cool. So I see some comments here. Post principles thinking. I mean, I love it. There is an awesome video of Elon Musk also talking about that.
Yep.
That's really cool. Um, any other prompts or questions? If you guys want to unmute and ask, you're welcome to, but you can also post here. I will also point out that Arvind is rolling out some courses with us, and look for additional information on those pieces if you are interested in learning more from him. There is I also wanted to share a little bit about some of the more recent developments on our C4AI portal. See if I may share for a sec. Here's a quick way to go take a look at what's going on within our community here. So under Center for Applied AI, can go ahead and click on our, how to engage this training stuff. There's a bunch of training that we had talked about over here. So you can pick out whatever makes the most sense. There's the GSS schedule that you can use if you're a government institution employee. There are all these different services that we provide, for example, adoption, trying to figure out how to adopt AI. You can go ahead and read this up and reach out to us. Adoption. And this is our events page. So the events, so we'll definitely be loading them up for the next year. A good way to keep in touch is to subscribe to the calendar, and then that way you will automatically be added to the upcoming events.
Tushar, are you sharing? Did you mean to be sharing?
I meant to be sharing, and I
I don't think you were. I think I was sharing.
Hey, Erwin, while Tushar's trying to figure out the computer, um, I wanted to ask you, I mean, there are, I took an AI governance class, and the group that ran that class was really focused mainly on catastrophic, life-threatening risks. And as you talk about all this stuff here, it's only accelerating. It's only going to get exponentially faster. It almost seems to some people that it's hopeless, that things are going to get out ahead of us and they're going to get out of control. And I don't know if you want to voice any opinions on that or your personal thinking, and because clearly you've thought very deeply about this, but in terms of existential risk and all this exponential development, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think it's hopeless. I really do think is us being able to transition from this kind of systems one thinking as the norm to systems two thinking. And that really has the reason what's made great generals successful in war is the ability to stop and think. Right? Just like your parents or you say, think before you act. Right? We
So, so,
are
so what's the minimum number of people on the planet that have to think like that? Is it every one out of 100 people? Is it
well,
everybody
he-
has to
he-
become literate to some degree?
here's what I would say. I would start with organizational leader set to begin
Hmm.
with, right? In organizations, right? Most organizations are so focused on the short term, and this is what I need to do. And most organizational leaders really focused on because of how they get compensated or whatnot. I'm going to do what made me successful yesterday is going to make me successful today. And that is a very dangerous premise. So I think that organization leaders start setting the example on this is how we need to think for the future. If organization leaders at different levels of the organization start saying, hey, let's set up time to think. Let's set up time to interact with GPT. Out of the hundreds of meetings that they have a month, let's set up a good 1 minute, 1 hour a month where we're going to think. And you have all of your executives saying, hey, what were your discussions this month about the fundamental assumptions about our business with GPT? What did you read and what did you think? Just that amount would help people to start thinking a little bit slower, this piece, so that the actions are not very reactive based on what I did yesterday. And they can really start thinking about the future. So, look, will there be catastrophic events? Yes, we can't avert black swans, right? But we can certainly manage them. Um, in a book that I did not talk about that is great is by Talib. What's Talib's last name? Or that is his last name. But it's the author of Black Swan. But he wrote another book, Fragile. I think that's what it is, Fragile. Um, and it really is about how to address these catastrophic events. So it's not hopeless that I do believe in the human brain and cognitive abilities are great. We just have to be able to make that changes.
Yeah,
We can't.
this is actually a plug you almost did for C4AI because what we specialize in is professional training, going into organizations. It's not college credits, it's going in places and quickly training people with applied skills. And part of it is applied leadership, management, strategy, all these things, and doing it swiftly. That's desperately needed right now. So
I,
interesting that you said that. So really, this needs to pick up. We all know that there's a lot of boneheaded companies out there. So we we have to somehow figure out how to get the message out and just accelerate this awareness that has to be developed.
I agree. It's not just about getting the hype of how am I gonna, bring AI into my organization, but it's really is how is AI going to change the nature of my business completely, and what do I need to be thinking about? How do I think better in interacting with that AI, in changing my business models and changing my mental models? So I do agree with you that that is what C4 AI and UMC are in the business of human capital development. It's not just a technical mode, but this almost falls in the EQ development piece of applied AI and applied exponential technologies.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
All right. That, thanks so much. Check us out at c4ai.ai and please join our Discord channel. There is so much happening. Feel free to post. You have access to our AI engineers or our expert thinkers over there. So become a part of the community and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for
Thank you.
joining.
Take care.
Bye.